Welcome to St. Peter United. My name is Martise Harper, and we are excited that you are here and joined us for services on today. We have a special message for you, and it is just for you. God loves you, and He loves us all. Here at St. Peter, we welcome all, in whatever you are in your stage in life, on its journey or passing through. We are here for you. St. Peter stands on the understanding that God is love. And we love the fact that you've joined us on today. So please join us as we go now live into service and give God praise, and He gives us life.
I'll prepare to give a few brief introductions, and then we'll get started. So I'll start with introducing and explaining the purpose of the panel, and then I'll do the introductions and we'll get started with hearing from our panelists. You all were given index cards, so if you have questions that you would like to have response to at the Q&A portion at the end, feel free to write your questions. I will invite you to hold them up, and then I will get somebody to pick those up. Cindy, would you be willing to do that? Okay, so if you write a question and you hold it up, Cindy will take the card, we'll get it to Devaney, and then she will make sure that I have those for that portion. And then there's also a card that you all were provided. There's a complimentary Bible study that you can access via the QR code on the back of the card that I developed, so that if you want to see how Scripture connects to this topic and what God wants us to consider, call to action for what we can do as the church to support those in our communities who are impacted by HIV. That Bible study is a resource that is free and available to you. Please feel free to look at it, share it with others, grab extra cards to make that available to people that you know. Okay? All right, let's get started. So the Faith and Healing panel here at St. Peter is designed to foster hope, compassionate dialogue around HIV within faith communities, and it brings together voices that will discuss the intersections of faith, HIV awareness, and focus on destigmatization. The purpose of the panel is to break the silence by addressing the stigma and silence that often surrounds HIV in religious spaces. And religious spaces can look like your church, your synagogue, your elay, if you are not in a community, but you have a group of people, whatever the space is that you share with others where you exchange beliefs and connection around spirituality, that is your faith space. Promoting healing and encourage emotional and spiritual healing for those who are affected by HIV. We want to educate faith communities by sharing accurate information and personal stories to dispel myths and foster empathy. We want to create safe spaces to reinforce that St. Peter specifically, we have a commitment to being an inclusive and affirming church where difficult conversations are welcome, and we are always looking to educate and elevate ourselves and our membership. Why this matters to us: this panel aligns with St. Peter's mission to being the leading church of people living on purpose, and our commitment to being a safe, affirming space for all, and to lead by example of what faith-based advocacy looks like. So to introduce our tremendous panelists, I'll start with Marnina Miller. Marnina is also known as Marnina the Queen. She is a nationally recognized human rights activist, HIV advocate, and digital creator. She currently serves as the co-executive director of the Positive Women's Network USA, a proud Black queer woman living with HIV. Her work has been recognized with the Violet Award and featured in Vice News, NPR, and the YouTube original series, HIV Disclosure and Dating. Welcome, Marnina. Next, we have Vanita Ray. Vanita Ray is a social justice advocate, policy strategist, and executive director of Black South Rising, BSR, a Southern-based organization committed to building political power in the Black South. Before launching BSR, she served as the co-executive director of the Positive Women's Network, USA, a national membership organization for people living with HIV. Welcome, Vanita. Next, we have Maya Wesley. Maya Wesley, also known as Amaya Jackson Ross, is a 33-year-old transgender woman born and raised in Houston, Texas. She discovered her love for dance during her high school years at the Banbury School of Dance and went on to perform with DAC, Dance Against Cancer, and Urban Soul's Second Company. Maya began in the drag world as a background dancer for various drag queens and male leads in the pageant industry before becoming a competitor herself. Today, she works in public health with the Truth Project, where she co-created the High T program, Transformation, Empowerment, and Autonomy for trans and gender non-conforming folks. Welcome, Maya. And finally, we have Crystal Williams. Crystal J. Williams is a licensed clinical social worker and mental health leader whose life's work bridges faith, healing, and advocacy for vulnerable communities. From serving pediatric HIV patients and families through the maternal child HIV program at UTMB to providing trauma-informed counseling and holistic care, Crystal's passion for empowering others is grounded in her Christian faith and deep compassion. She brings wisdom, warmth, and powerful insight on how faith communities can truly be spaces of love, inclusion, and healing. Welcome, Crystal. So one of the first questions that I want to bring to the panel is how can religious communities play a role in reducing HIV-related stigma? And when I pose the questions, you can answer in any order. But as you reflect on that, the question again is how can religious communities play a role in reducing HIV-related stigma? At the bottom. Hold on.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I would say, though, one of the ways that religious communities can help is by educating themselves on the, first off, the stigmas that that each subsection of community faces, whether that is cis women, whether that is trans women, trans men, non-binary folk, men in general, just understanding the way stigma affects and also how that affects mental health, how that affects holistic health, and to be a system of safety.
Thank you. Would anyone else?
Well, a couple things. We have to start with our theology. So teach that illness is not a punishment and people are not their diagnoses, because I think a lot of times when people are diagnosed, they feel like it becomes who they are, their identity. So people are not their diagnosis. And then, just like Maya was saying, we have to kind of normalize things in terms of HIV. And I know people are like, no, it's not, but it's very similar to high blood pressure, diabetes. If you are diagnosed with HIV these days, well, no, in terms of it is a manageable illness, that if you take your medication, if you are under treatment, if you are undetectable, you can live a long life like someone with with diabetes or a high blood pressure or something that's more common, and people are not judging you if you have this illness. And so I think making sure that we just normalize getting tested, not having to say, oh, anonymous testing, not being nervous about talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go. For me, the Black church has always been a place of social justice. From abolitionism during slavery times down to civil rights justice, organizing, Black churches have always been at the forefront. And I think we have to bring that back. The same way that I sometimes felt unheard and unseen in pews as a person of faith, of lived experience that was living with HIV, we have to also normalize conversations. We have to make sure that these conversations that we're having today aren't just on one particular day, and that the pastor so eloquently said that it is just not his responsibility to bring these conversations, but that you all should be missioners and you all should be missionaries of the good gospel and talking about how people living with HIV are normal people living everyday lives, and that the only thing that separates your day from mine is one pill, one shot, and a whole lot of stigma. I think we gotta add that to the conversation too, because we know that stigma is still perpetuating inside of communities of faith.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was going to get ready to go where Marnina did. That the church has always had an extremely important role in the community, and particularly minority communities, and particularly the Black community. So for it not to exert leadership on something that's still 40-something years later, so just where our communities are so disproportionately impacted, is just sad. To say we're leaders of community, but yet our faith communities are still stigmatizing and acting like they don't understand. I've been positive a little over 20 years, and I've spoken a few churches or shared, and this is the second time I've been in the sanctuary of a church. Usually we're in the little side building, or it's a World AIDS Day. This issue is rampant in our communities, and I believe we can't just act like World AIDS Day, most of us don't even come out, because 364 days of the year we gotta live with it, and the world pays attention and feels sorry for us on one day, when I don't want the sorry, I want do better. So I think, I hear pastors still saying, or folks making excuses for them, they're not educated. This is willful ignorance at this point. If you don't know, you don't wanna know. If you don't know what your parishioners or your congregation or your community is going through, then why are you here? It is such a big issue in our community still. And so the faith-based community, I think in Houston, I know one church that always has it in the sanctuary and talks about it all the time. There's activities all the time going on, and that is just not okay. So not only was I happy to hear you are having this conversation, but centering Black women who are such a backbone of the church. And we sit there in silence and shame because we can't tell you who we are. I've talked to women who've been positive years, and they say they love themselves, but they can't say who they are in church. So I say, you've got a position, you've got a pulpit, you've got a platform, use it to make our lives easier and the lives of younger women, younger men, your whole congregation. Feeling acceptance here can make a difference on the way that we go out there. If churches and the faith community would stop stigmatizing us, that would go a long way with changing the trajectory of this disease in our community, which hasn't let up, no matter what you all are thinking. So, Latriva, thank you for doing this, and I think there is a lot to be done. I remember one place, when we were in the little side room, the mother of the church came and said, how can we talk about this more? And it was after a very homophobic and horrible session that I had to sit in and listen to, and then afterwards asked that, I said, well, for you to do that, you can't lead it. Your church has got to be, you got to have somebody in your church who's living with HIV, who's not so ashamed to come forward and hold a session for people living with HIV without shame. And you could tell that is not what she wants to do, because she wants to lead it, and you can't lead where there's shame. You need somebody of lived experience. So there's a lot to do, and I think starting where you're starting, I don't knock it, but yes, this big pulpit, this big platform can make a difference in the lives of so many, and I really welcome it.
Coming or connecting to what you were just saying, Benita, what are steps churches can take to ensure that their HIV-related initiatives are inclusive, specifically to the needs of Black women? And that's anybody.
Yeah. Well, Black women, I think, have listened to Black women. So one of the things I always tell churches, if you've got to invite outsiders to your church, I guarantee you're sitting next to somebody every week who's living with HIV, and they don't feel empowered or free enough, safe enough to be open. And so, first of all, it is to bring those images and language here so that the people that you sit next to every day can feel welcome and safe enough to say, maybe that's me. It starts by having stuff like this. It starts by talking about it. It starts by embracing it at the lead. It starts by you watching your mannerisms when HIV comes up and we see this little twitch. Right. We see this little, like this, and we see this. The people next to you see that too. So first of all, we got to check ourselves. A church is full of people. So I think first let's start with some education. Educate yourself and then educate others. All of us have a responsibility when you hear, I don't care if you're in the church or out, when you hear something negative comes up about HIV or people shaming somebody, to stop it. Everybody has, because HIV affects you whether you're positive or negative. Black women, there's a reason, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later, why Black women are so disproportionately impacted, because we lead all other women in living with HIV, and there's a reason for that. But start with yourselves by checking yourselves and how you respond when HIV comes up. Do some education so folks can get knowledgeable so that when you're sharing things, it's the facts. And secondly, don't wait for an occasion or a grant, and I'm glad you got one, so don't get me wrong, because everything costs money, to talk about HIV. It's a free conversation every day.
Would anyone else like to add?
I think another thing is that as a community, we have to realize that we are all HIV possible. So especially as a trans person, as a trans woman, society tends to place projections on who I am and how I show up in the world, and automatically will put the umbrella of being HIV positive onto me because of my identity, and without knowing how I move throughout the world. So education again is one of the main things that I think that the church, religious places need to focus on, in educating folks that if you are sexually active, you are HIV possible. So, and that is anybody, cis, trans, however you might fall on the spectrum. We are all HIV possible if we are not already living with it.
Thank you. That's right. Okay. So what are some of the unique challenges faced by Black women living with HIV, and how can churches help address them? What are some of the unique challenges faced by Black women living with HIV, and how can churches help to address them?
Well, I will say, if you are silent about HIV in your communities, you are complicit in the harm that happens to Black women living with HIV. Black women are disproportionately impacted by the epidemic. Vanita mentioned earlier about some of the that we would get to some of the reasons why. I think I want to talk about that here. Homophobia, transphobia, patriarchy, even stigma within our churches, even the language that's used around HIV. When I hear the words infected, I immediately crunch my face up, because I'm not infected, I'm a person living with HIV. So even the language that we use to talk about the HIV epidemic, even in Texas, we are still living with HIV criminalization laws that disproportionately impact Black and brown communities. And so all of these things are disproportionately impacting Black women's bodies because we hold so much of the epidemic. But I'm pretty sure Vanita got a whole lot more to add to it.
Well, I'll add, as someone who worked with many mothers who were pregnant and were positive with HIV. And a lot of times there was mistrust in medical providers, period. They didn't want to share a lot of information in fear of being judged. I can remember just stigma in dating, so women, they would be undetectable, but they haven't told their partner, and then they would be pregnant. So there was so much mistrust in telling their partners about it. Sometimes they would contract HIV from their partners, and they didn't know that their partners were positive. There was also just the mental load of being silent, being afraid to talk about it. So supporting, I think the church can really, let me see your name again. Marina, she said, use plain language. Don't whisper about it. Vanita said, people scrunch up their faces or they're very shy to talk about it. You have to use plain language and be straightforward about exactly what we're talking about. And also, I think ways that the churches can help are, one, you have a grant. If there's childcare that you can assist with, appointments, groups, transportation. Benita said, have people who are living with HIV be the face, talk about things. It's easy for me to stand here as an ally, but I don't have a lived experience. I just have an experience as someone who has worked, almost a decade with people who are living with HIV. So I know their lived experience, but I think having people who have had that lived experience and be honest about it and talk about it.
Speaking on the aspect of a Black trans woman, and what was the, with Black trans women, it's feeling, and I kind of had this when Latriva asked me to come here, is having a fear with being in a church, being in this space, because as Black trans people, we have been shunned away from the church for who we are, who God has shown us who we are meant to be. And having to step into a space like this, it goes back to mental health. It's something that is extremely terrifying for us when we already live a very terrifying life of how society treats us outside. And so to come into a place and a space to where it's supposed to be welcoming, it's supposed to be love, it's supposed to be light, and you don't necessarily feel that all the time because the perceptions that people have on your identity is something that is that keeps a lot of trans people and Black trans people outside of the church. And speaking from my own experience, some of the most loving, accepting, God-fearing people that I have ever met have been trans people, have been trans women that give you the clothes off their backs, take care of children who've been put out of the home for being who they are. So I think that's something as well.
Thank you for that, Maya. Thank you for your courage. Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, I'd be wondering some of the unique challenges. Why, probably in 2016, someone asked me to do this presentation, and it was really getting to why Black women were so impacted. And I created this presentation because I've never seen another one, but I wanted people to start asking the question, why? Why are Blacks so disproportionately impacted? Why are Black women? If you could uncover that question, I think you can get to some of our unique characteristics. And when I would do this presentation, I asked people why, and they always come up with stuff, we don't know how to take care of ourselves, the down low brother, all of these things to describe us. And even other women say that because we live in a society that has double standards. This man gets drunk, falls down, he's all right. I get drunk and fall down, I'm a woman doing it. So everything about a woman is doubly shaming. So one of the reasons and then getting HIV, Black men, I think, can be more accepted, the women not, because we're the backbone of the church, we're the backbone of the community, we're the backbone of the family, we're the matriarch, we're Big Mama. Big Mama can't have this. Right. Big Mama ain't human, right? Because she's a superwoman. She never gets her needs met. So all this fallacy about these images, and as Black women, we take it on and never try to get our own needs met because we're so busy meeting everybody else's and living up to this other standard that ain't real. Because we got to be these super women for everybody. We cannot be human and with vulnerabilities. And so we want, and black women, we gotta stop it, step off and say, damn it, we don't wanna do that much. But black women are the only group, yes, thank you. You know, I put on Facebook not too long ago, could we retire from being the matriarch? And what you know, most people said no. I said, that's why black women are so tired.
Right.
We are, I'm retiring. So black women, let me say this, we're very unique. And if you're sitting here and you're negative, I love it. If you're positive, I want you to know it. We sit at the intersection of racial discrimination and gender inequity.
Right.
Only black women sit there. White women don't sit there. Then you complicate it, which most of us have, being the single mother, living in poverty. Our partners are right in reach. We end up sharing, like it or not, because our zip codes dominate where we can go because of poverty. Massive, all those issues that impact our whole communities impact the leaders of the community doubly. But we can't stop to be human because we got to fix it all. So when you add to that my Latina sisters' language, or my sisters from Ethiopia language, and you gender inequity, and you have the president of the United States referring to women as dogs or molesting women, and people still will elect him because patriarchy. Every other country has had women lead, but most of the churches I go to, the pastors are all male. So patriarchy sets this shit up, y'all. And I need us to realize that women, you know, black women have the double whammy that no other group has. And so it is not her behavior, it's not because she's a hoe, which we get called. I mean, we had to go talk to the rappers who want to tell us who we are. We are your mothers. I'm your grandmother. I have 2 grandsons. I'm the auntie. I'm the lawyer. But all of that gets overshadowed when you add, and she's living with HIV. Right. All of that got taken away when I came up positive. None of it mattered because people thought they knew where I was. So when you look at where women live in this country and really around the world, you know, where we're second-class citizens, we don't get paid as much, all the race and gender intersections make women more vulnerable. And I don't use words like at risk because it puts it on us. It's a systemic issue, a structural issue. And so even if a church goes a long way to addressing some of those, what is the income of the women in your church? Do they have food? Or how are they taking care of the kids? Because all those struggles are the things she has to do. And then to try to get her needs met might be with somebody she ain't asking him every question. And he ain't telling the truth. So we really need to look at these social factors. I want you to get sexual education, but sex is only the transmission route for HIV. It is not what the real issue is about. You know, so that's when you saw me going like this when she said hypertension and stuff. I ain't never been turned down for sex when I said I might have low blood sugar. Right. Or I've never been, you threaten to take away my kids because I'm diabetic. Right. Or there's stuff on TV that tells you, you know, she just didn't know how to take care of herself better because she got diabetes. That doesn't happen to other issues, other chronic illnesses. So there's a social context that makes HIV so much worse. And if each one of you that could change, there's no pill for stigma, so I can't cure you, but each of you could do something yourselves about the way you see us and yourself, and the way you see the black women among you, because if their needs are not being met, their children's needs are not being met, she is more vulnerable to acquiring HIV. If she's in an intimate partner violence relationship, she is even more vulnerable to contracting HIV. So all of those issues, gender-based violence, create vulnerabilities that make us more vulnerable to getting HIV. And the system worked. So now, of the women living with HIV, over 50% of them are black women. So the system worked like it's supposed to. And over 50% of the women living with HIV are black. And that should be unacceptable. Anytime you go somewhere hearing that, you should say, why? What can we do? And I'm telling you, meet the needs of black women, you're gonna do better, whether they're positive or negative, because if it's negative, you have a chance to keep her that way. And if she's positive, maybe that kind of generosity and kindness will get her open enough to talk about who she really is.
Awesome, thank you. So,
So you mentioned systemic issues. What are some of the things that churches can do that address policy needs that can help shift or address the systemic issues that we find that are the cause or the source of the problems that are impacting HIV, Black women and HIV?
So shameless plug. I'm the co-executive director of Positive Women's Network. We are the only national organization that centers the lead of women living with HIV, trans folks, and also gender nonconforming folks. What I will say is partner with local organizations who are already doing that work. Positive Women's Network, we have a local chapter, the Houston chapter. We call it the Greater Houston Area Chapter because we cover the whole Harris County. Right now, we run something called the Texas Strike Force, which is a conglomerate of like a coalition of people that are working to help fight back against policy issues that are impacting people in Texas. Join Texas Strike Force, join Positive Women's Network, Greater Houston Area Chapter, follow our Facebook post, and make sure you're checking in with community and follow those leaders who are already doing that work. Right now, we're doing a lot of voter registration drives. We're doing integrated voter engagement, which means we're going door to door. We're knocking on doors and talking to people about issues that are impacting them right in their own home churches. And so as we are thinking about how you get into policy and how you do this work, also there is a Texas HIV Advocacy Day. So churches need to be making sure that we are thinking about voter registration drives, getting involved in marches. Advocacy is being a missionary in action. When I think about myself as an activist and as an organizer, this is really the first time that I have been in a church setting when talking about my HIV diagnosis, which is wild. And so they're right there, and it's yeah, and I've been doing advocacy and organizing all over this country and internationally. And it's my first time stepping into a place of faith. That says a lot about the leadership in this church, about you, Latriva, and about what this mission of this church is. And I'll also say that as we think about how we merge the two together, you cannot do anything in this world without policy, without politics. It impacts your everyday life, from the air you breathe, the water you drink, all of it is impacted by legislators locally. Local elections matter. Make sure that you are registering to vote, making sure that you are voting to protect the lives of people living with HIV. We deserve to live high quality lives. And so think about and look and ask your legislators about issues impacting people living with HIV. Are they protecting our lives?
I guess I would want to say, just as talk that, don't, so I know we're in a really troubling time now because, you know, church is a 501c3. You've got some limitations, but you really have a lot of latitude too. You know, to do some of what Marnita said about voter registration, informed voters, bringing out people to talk about the issues, supporting, and even if you don't just do HIV, trans issues, immigrant issues. I mean, that to bring those things, you can bring speakers, you can have nonpartisan discussions to educate, because really the goal is not just turning out a lot of voters, but informed voters. So partner with people, do things, you know, we got midterms coming up. Do one night a month of education for your people. You can have voter registration every week. You can bring in, particularly partnering with the kind of communities that are being marginalized right now. Because I like what Maya said, HIV possible, so if they're not, you know, we want to keep them that way. Partnering with clinics to bring all kind of health care to people, not just HIV testing. We can couple that with all kinds, because when you do HIV testing, you're going to stigmatize your event. Why not? We have a bunch of issues. Women die from heart disease more than anything else. So you can talk about a lot of other issues. But people really focus on social determinants of health, like making sure food, you know, transportation, crime, those things. But political determinants of health are about political will. You all have the ability to turn out, I don't know how many people in your church, to support or oppose something that will impact our lives and your lives or the lives of your family. Because I guarantee you, with this many people in the room, all y'all know somebody living with HIV. Let me just ask the question, how many of you know somebody personally living with HIV? That's beautiful. I have never been in a church and seen that many hands, so I'm really happy, but I guarantee the rest of you do too, you just don't know it. For the first 5 or 6, 7 years that I was living with HIV, I never told people too much, but my daughter and my sister, because I felt so ashamed. And all I did was the human stuff. I had sex, which I think probably most of the people in this room have had. But why I get shamed and you did is because of that one transmission that happened to me that may not have happened to you. But so, the world saw me one way, and this line, serial conversion, changed everything. That just doesn't seem right. But you can elevate that. So all of our issues are just not HIV. There's voter engagement. We want to elect people that has our back, that does not transphobic, that's not anti-immigrants. So to the degree that you can, get involved. I don't know why churches are closing their doors to current issues that are going on, affecting the people that you're expecting to come sit in your place. I tell people I'm not going to spend my time or money nowhere that's not addressing the issues I deal with every day. You can't pretend to care about me one day of the week,
Right. Yeah.
or 2 days. So there is a lot, and I will challenge you, but if you call me, I will help. Because there's no excuse in 2025
Right.
that we are dealing with a tyrannical government who has cut away HIV services. All of us who are up here that are living with HIV are being challenged just to get our own medicine. I mean, in this country. So we got a government that is not supportive of people living with HIV. So we need the people to be. We got a government that's not supportive of our trans brothers and sisters. So we need y'all to be. We got a government that wants the labor of our immigrants, but don't want to respect them as human beings. So all of that are black men. Trust me, they don't see y'all as much better. But women just have that double thing. So there's so much y'all could do. Get involved. It is not okay to shut your door to the rest of the world and what we're going through.
That's right. That's right.
Also, I wanted to add too, just to add a little background to why I think Vanita and I are so passionate and pissed off really about the issues that are impacting people living with HIV. Right now, our federal government, the federal government has taken away HIV prevention services at the Center for Disease Control at the CDC. So there's no more HIV prevention arm federally. So there's no one addressing HIV prevention currently. Right now, PEPFAR, which is a space where they were giving out meds to people living with HIV internationally, has now been defunded. So there are millions of people globally that have went without HIV meds for the last 90 days.
No, they're dying.
Yes.
They're dying.
Yes.
The numbers, Google it. The numbers are crazy.
Yes.
They're dying.
And so all of that, and then on top of that, all of the erasure of our systems, we're gonna go back to the point where we're starting to see wait lists for people to access HIV medications. That is dangerous, and as Vanita said, is deadly. And so we're experiencing that right here in Texas. I talked about the Texas Strike Force recently, earlier during the conversation, and they actually helped to make sure that there were other medications that were on the formulary for people living with HIV to be able to access, because the Texas government had taken off some HIV meds off of the formulary for people to be able to access. And so that is what we're facing. That is why we're so upset, pissed off, worried, concerned. I know I stay up at night thinking about how am I gonna make sure that the people that I serve, the people I love, and myself have access to HIV meds. Y'all, these meds are $5,000 and upwards a bottle, a month. And so to be sitting in a church and talking to y'all and being passionate, that is the fuel. I know for me, that's my fire. And that is the reason why I'm sitting up here today, because I want y'all to get on board with us and make sure that you are educating folks and advocating alongside us as we enter into some really treacherous times.
Thank you. And that takes me like, I'm listening to you, I'm connecting with your passion, but it's letting me know that there is also the mental health component that Black women who are impacted have to navigate. So what impact does HIV stigma have on the mental health of Black women? And again, how can churches provide support?
Well, I can, again, as someone not living with HIV, but someone who's worked with people living with HIV for nearly a decade, when I tell you the depression, the shame, the guilt, the blaming, women would be pregnant and feel like they had a death sentence, that their child had a death sentence. And I would like to say the program that I work with, none of the women who were undetectable ever delivered a baby that was positive. So that I want people to understand that yes, you can have HIV, but you can have children, you can live a life. Unfortunately, medication is under attack now, but at that time, if a woman was undetectable, they delivered babies that were not positive. But they had so much depression, their mental load, and they were always tired and fatigued. It was because they were masking every single day, not wanting people to know. Vanita said for the first, 6, 7 years, you didn't even tell anyone you were positive. There were so many women who did not want anyone to know. We would ask for ROIs, which is a release of information if anything happened. So much shame attached to it. I remember, I don't even know if shows now, when we were coming up, when people were trying to change the stigma with HIV. I think one show I can remember, I'm telling my age, maybe Girlfriends, and Joan's friend had HIV and she maybe cut her hand or something, and everyone was freaking out, right? Because the blood, oh my God, I'm gonna get it. And I made sure that when a woman, because sometimes women would find out that they were positive when they came to our appointment, because they didn't even know why they were coming. Their OB-GYN said, you need to go see the specialist. And they wouldn't even have the language to tell the women, you're positive. They would say, you need to see this specialist. And then we would tell them, and of course, they're laying on the ground crying because they didn't even know. But I say that to say, I made it a point to ask if it was okay. I would hold their hand, I would give them a hug, because they would say they felt dirty. They would tell me that they felt just like they weren't even a person anymore. And so I say that to say that the depression, they had treatment fatigue. They were tired of taking, at that time, it wasn't just one pill a day. It was a cocktail of medication that they had to take. So they were tired of taking medication, tired of going to the doctor, tired of getting, just treatment fatigue, all of these things. So it was just very difficult at that time. So just the main point was the shame.
Yeah.
I think something that needs to be focused on is also trauma and compound trauma. And when we speak as people of color, brown and black folk and trans folk, our lives we deal with a lot of trauma that is not faced, that is not dealt with in the correct ways. And to have or get a diagnosis and to feel like you can't speak to someone, that adds on to that trauma that you're already dealing with, compounding it. If you don't know what compound trauma is, look it up. It is you're putting layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of things that you have to deal with in your life, and still try to show up for other people, still try to show up for yourself, and just take focus on how we as black and brown people, how that shows up in our lives. I think dealing with that and finding ways as a community to deal with that and come together is something that we all need to really do.
I think I will say that most people who've had a HIV diagnosis deals with PTSD. I know I do. And I remember in the early days trying to watch TV when I wasn't crying and swear that it's a conspiracy because every subject was about HIV. And I watched the Girlfriends one night, and not knowing it's gonna be on HIV, then I was stuck until the people died at the end, and I was hysterical.
Yeah.
My very first doctor's appointment was the next day, and I went in there crying, and I asked him, was I gonna die? And he said he could not tell me whether, and that's taking my medicine or not, I still could die. There's no guarantee that HIV-related complications or AIDS will not happen, even taking your medicine. Black women has the highest comorbidity and mortality rate of all of the other folks dealing with HIV because we're already dealing with so many other health disparities, and you just add this one with all of the other pressure. Depression is rampant, and we mask it because everybody wants us to feel good and be happy because God got us. When the reality is I'm a human being and this shit hurts. Who wants to go around telling your grandmother, your daughter? I remember, you know, it took me from 2000, I was diagnosed in, ooh, this is a real good thing. I had to think of that year, 2003, April 2nd, 2003. I didn't go public and come out with my status until 2011. And what I discovered, the secrecy out of shame is different out of secrecy out of need to know. And so the shame overruled everything. You know, I just could not face. I remember sitting in a room and somebody said, why are Black women more impacted by HIV? And another Black woman said, because they promiscuous. And my face just burnt. You know, so before you can speak up, you sit in rooms and hear all this stuff. So you're already feeling other, different. And I really commend, all of us process our diagnosis different, but I have not met one woman who said, oh, I got HIV and I'm good. Right. I just haven't met that person, not a Black woman. I've met a woman 21 years and still hadn't told nobody. And a lot of times we don't find out, especially in the state of Texas, until you're pregnant. Pregnant and when you go to prison are the only two mandatory tests in Texas. What does that say, y'all? Pregnant or going to prison. Not your well woman exam doesn't happen, you gotta ask for it. So depression really overrules everything. I know my family had to watch me. They were depressed, you know, and my family helped me get better. So did the Houston HIV community, one of the reasons why I'm still here. So depression is huge, and it leads to all kinds of things, weight gain, all this stuff you see. And if we don't talk about mental health, so that's another way to get a conversation, just talking about mental health. Even if I ain't told you I'm positive, the acknowledgement that we can talk about depression and what I'm feeling really helps. Even after all these years, I realized I still experience depression. And coming out with it was still hard to just talk about, not HIV, but just depression. Because our society still makes it taboos both. And so the fact that we can talk about that and recognize that so many of us are dealing with trauma, intergenerational trauma, compound trauma, because of historically what Black women have had to do to survive in this country, y'all, we still carry that. Being raped, being sold, being all those kind of things, having our reproductive systems controlled. What do you think is happening again?
It's in our DNA.
Huh?
It's in our DNA.
Yes. So what I'm saying is all of that stuff is what we're dealing with. Create spaces that we can share that stuff. Share it with y'all, because y'all are dealing with your own too. But as women, as Black women with multiple identities, we need a place to be able to talk about all this versus we go along. Everybody just wants us to be happy and be Big Mama, right? Big Mama never talked about her problems. Right. I am not Big Mama, y'all. Menopause, all of this stuff, very much complicated. I remember when I first started having flashes at 30-something, before HIV, and after HIV, I went to look, there was no information. So I couldn't find out anything about how meds would maybe affect that, what I was going through. So there's so much unknown. How will HIV affect me as I age? Nobody knows. So mental health is such a big issue, and I think it should be coupled always. Not to say that, oh, well, she had drug addiction and she had all this. No, she could have been raised with a mother and father and had a great childhood, and still growing up in this society, the way women are portrayed, and still deal with mental health issues. So it's a huge issue, and for Black people and for immigrants or anybody, I think, that have been othered in this country, which unless you're cis white male, you're being othered right now.
And this will be our last panelist question. We'll open the floor for any questions from the audience that have been shared, and then move forward. All right, so I've heard several of you talk about the fact that this is this experience in this church is a unique one. So I'm interested in knowing if you have come across any successful initiatives that churches have provided for community or their churches that you thought were effective and useful that you would be interested in sharing.
You mentioned a church. But what church did you go to?
The one church, so I got quiet because when people always come up to me and say, well, this church is doing good, I haven't seen them yet. So I think it is an uncharted territory. I think St. John's downtown is one of the few. I know Amber David, they talk about it from the pulpit. I mean, there's stuff going on all the time. People are disclosing in the open. It's one of the few places that I have seen, and I'm not a church person. I love to help other leaders navigate churches because I think if you go there, don't you want to be comfortable there? And I love to do that, but so I will not profess to be a church person. My daddy was a preacher, but I was the other woman's child. I'm a PK, but I'm the other woman's child. But so they're one of the ones, and because I think the pastors talk about it, it ain't taboo. It's brought up in so many settings. We have events there. Open up your space for other community people to have events here, right? Go to St. John's and say, how did y'all start? And you know what? They got somebody living with HIV who's willing to be open, and the pastors were okay and recognized because they were dealing with homeless and all this, that they had a lot of folks that could be dealing with it, and they start sensitizing their folks to HIV community that will be inside their church. So it's one, there's a few others that do stuff, but it's the only one I know that really I see it from the pulpit in the sanctuary. And it's just because it is not a taboo thing, it's a human thing. The first letter of HIV is human, y'all. It ain't homophobia, it's human. So it's just a human thing, and they recognize that so many of their people could be impacted, and they want to create space if you need to.
Yeah.
I don't know any others.
Me either.
I'll say that HIV stigma wounds the body and the spirit as much as it wounds your spirit as much as it wounds your body. And what I will say about that is that as people of God or people of faith, we have to be obedient to the calling on our lives. And I know Vanita is not a church person, but Vanita was obedient to the calling on her life. Around being an advocate, an organizer. I got into HIV activism and started speaking about my own diagnosis publicly because of the example of Vanita, seeing her be an attorney, a lawyer, being an activist or organizer, and making sure that people living with HIV were at the forefront of all of their decision making. She created a space where it was a community space where only people living with HIV were there, and we really incubated and created programs, initiatives, and other things for people living with HIV throughout Houston, throughout Texas, and throughout the country now. And so what I will say is that if you are implementing or going to implement something in this church, make sure that people living with HIV are the curators of it, and that we started from implementation, from the thought process, the organizing of it, the creation of it, all the way through implementation. People living with HIV should be the curators of it, because you don't want to create something that we don't deem as viable. We may not see transportation as an issue in this church. You don't know. And so getting with the people in this church who are living with HIV so that they can curate those programs themselves.
Just to piggyback off of that, I had wrote something that said co-designed with Black women living with HIV, and pay them for their expertise. Yes. Pay them for it. And I don't necessarily know the programs that work, but I did have some suggestions. I don't know how much money you got for your grant, but I was thinking, you were spot on with the social determinants of health, making sure the basic needs are met. So if you have a food pantry, if you have something around maternal child health, marry those together. So it's not just focused on one thing, providing an opportunity. I don't know if y'all have a food pantry, but maybe that's something that women living with HIV need. But again, you have to do a needs assessment. What are the needs of your congregation? Because you don't want to do something that's not useful, that's going to be won't be a good use of your time. It's going to waste your money and waste your grant, and then you're not going to have the reports you need to get more money for your grant. But making sure you know exactly what the people that you're serving need, and again, make sure that the Black women who are living with HIV are co-leading that, and that there is some type of compensation for their expertise.
And then I also want to add on to what she said, speaking on a trans lens. I'm not someone who is living with HIV, but I am privy to a lot of my sisters who are. And again, coming in spaces like this is very uncomfortable. And a lot of my sisters and my brothers, and my theys and thems, are not, again, comfortable or have the, I don't want to say the courage, but the wherewithal to stand in this space because of the pain that has caused a lot of them. So having specific conversations that focus on the trans and gender nonconforming communities by itself, because there's a lot that we deal with that community does not see, and a lot of us feel they don't really care about.
Can I say something too? And I love what you just said. And bring them without an HIV banner, just to
Yes.
hear from folks.
Just to hear the experience.
And if HIV comes up, that's one thing, but don't designate HIV on a certain population. So I'm glad we focus on Black women, don't get me wrong. But folks want to, unless they say, put me under a banner of HIV, that's probably not going to be it. Just listen to people. I think that is really good. And partner with existing people. I had another thought, but it left. I'm over 60.
Right. Other people's money, just like, tell me your name, Marnina. Listen, there are lots of organizations that are already working in this space. Partner with them, spend their money, see how they can help you all, because we don't always have a lot of money in Black churches. We got a building fund. You know, there's still lots of toxic traits of the Black church, just in general, but use other people's money. If you can find ways to partner with organizations that are already in this space, get their money, honey.
Well, not only that is, if we told you we can't remember that many churches, you all would be chartering uncharted territory. I told you only one church I can think of in Houston that has done something. So you all could be pioneers.
Absolutely.
There is a wide field. Here we are in 2025, and HIV is still just as stigmatized as it was 20 years ago. There is an open field for you all to do something. And there's a community which we are part of, and there's some people out there that are part of to help you all.
Yes.
So there's a lot to do. And one of the things I will suggest not to do, don't just bring people living with HIV up here to share their stories. That's trauma porn to me now. You know, we felt great in the beginning because we got to say something out loud that we were ashamed of, but after a while it's turned to trauma porn. Folks just want to hear how bad it was and then go off and give us a gift card or a box lunch. And that is emotional labor people are putting forth for you. If it comes out, that's one thing, but just bringing them for the purpose of sharing. And I have been asked to churches just for the purpose of sharing my story. And I'm like, you know, that's not the story I usually share at that time. So to bring people to be their full selves, and HIV is one part of it, you all could help make it one part and not what it feels like the whole part when we're dealing with so many other images and negative messaging, shaming and blaming and telling us that we're no good. You know, most of the interventions are about behavior. It's like a behavior thing. We had sex. That's it. So what can you change about behavior there? Right. Don't have sex? Right. So is the whole room gonna join me?
Right.
I didn't see no hands. And I don't want to see. I want you to be human. I don't want to be criminalized for me being human.
Right.
Because we are still those full people entitled to sex, pleasure, and all those things. I had my brother say, well, if you got it, don't have sex no more. I said, you don't have sex. I have a commitment to do no harm, so I have sex responsibly. But I am a human being, and there's a whole system out there that says I shouldn't have sex. I've like forfeited a portion of my human rights because I'm living with HIV. And I'm here to tell you that should not be the case. And until women feel, especially black women, because we got the church on one ear, and then we got our own sexuality, and then we're a mother, we're big mama. We got so much shit going on in our head, we don't know what identity to show up for because we can't be just human. And we don't have to get ours when y'all sleep in the middle of the night because we can't act like we're sexual beings. We are, folks. So bring us here to talk about, today I didn't mind this, but to talk about whatever. All of these issues overlap with so much else. Mine adds HIV to the mix, which brings a whole bunch of other stuff, but the depression, we all can do. We can all talk about it.
And I wanted to share that St. Peter is an extremely diverse community. We have a number of identities and demographics represented, and so while we are there are a lot of brown faces in here. We are not just exclusively a black church, but the experience of those of us who have grown up in and been part of the black church is valued and welcomed here. And so we make sure that the voices and the experiences of black women are welcome, and conversations will in the future will also include other demographics and other parties. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone recognized that we are primarily focused on the inclusivity of everybody and that all voices are lifted and heralded here. And I wanted to see, are there any questions that came from the audience? Were there any? Okay. Okay, can we borrow a mic?
Thank you all. I really appreciated everything that you all shared. So the one question I have is, where can we find information to educate ourselves on the challenges that you all have and for people living with HIV and the ways in which we can support them?
There are a plethora of organizations, grassroots organizations around the city you can go to. The True Project, one of the organization that I work with, the Normal Anomaly, Mahogany Project, Avenue 360. Like there's tons of places that are grassroots based that will educate, give you, bring you into care if you need care. So also the Montrose Center, there's, yes, a plethora of places to look up.
Go online and look up Positive Women's Network. Yeah, so Positive Women's Network, pwn-usa.org. I think I was loud. Was I loud enough for y'all? Positive Women's Network, so pwn-usa.org. You can also follow us at PWN USA on all social media platforms. We talk about a lot of the policy advocacy issues that are impacting black women living with HIV. And what I will say, Latriva, too, is that when you heal a black woman, you heal the entire community. Absolutely. If we are already the ones that are disproportionately impacted by something, when we have our liberation, everyone gets liberated. And so I'm so glad that you all are doing a strategic space where you are impacting black women living with HIV, because I truly believe that because we are the center of the epidemic, we will be the ones that will help end it.
Yes. Then we have one more question.
As a child of the community, are there any ways that we could help out, not just with this topic, but also to spread the word so that it is less embarrassing to talk about it?
So I think she's saying as a youth.
As a young person. Oh, I love that. I really, I love you.
I just want to say she's a member of St. Peter too, so I'm sorry. I gotta take a moment to say that. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Go ahead.
I love that. So Advocates for Youth is actually a national space for young people to get involved into advocacy and organizing. They start around age 14. And so they talk about everything from comprehensive sex education to teen pregnancy, talking about HIV, and they actually have cohorts where you can attend in-person spaces to talk about these things that are directly impacting you and be able to bring it back to your communities, and they will pay for you to go. So look them up, Advocates for Youth.
And then also the organization that I work with, the True Project, we have a youth program that we do, and our advocacy is focused through the arts. So if you're an artist, you're a poet, singer, dancer, any of those things, your art, we use that as advocacy to fight against HIV stigma, trans stigma, any kind of stigma there is.
And one more, Unite for Reproductive and Gender Equity. They are also a youth-based organization that does a lot of reproductive justice work where you can get started in high school.
And let me say, I love what they said, but if after your research, you get an idea of something to do, because we're up here giving you people to call or other groups because of the youth, but if you get an idea, bring it to somebody.
Yeah.
And see if they can't implement it, because we're looking for ideas from youth. And I don't care what you think, we can't design youth programs.
Right.
We need y'all to do it. But we also welcome you to come out, like Marnina has her members, they did a backpack drive here. They're doing voter registration. Youth can come help that too. But if you get a unique idea that says, I think we could do something better if we did it this way, I would love to hear it, because you all are the future and your ideas won't be ours, and we need to listen to your ideas.
We need y'all, we do.
So, thank you so much to our panelists. We have enjoyed our time with you. We appreciate your wisdom, your experience, and your willingness to share that with us. We thank you that you are now a part of our community, so we will definitely be pulling on you in the future and inviting you to continue to help us expand this ministry. Let's give them a round of applause. I have a few gifts, Devaney. Dev. I have a few gifts that we want to offer you as just a small token of our gratitude for your time. Thank you, St. Peter, for your support, for being present. Thank you for your willingness to help us expand this. I have a call to action for us as a community. I am interested in creating and making this into an ongoing ministry. And so I invite you and welcome you to join with me as we look at developing this and finding ways to continue to grow as a community in this area and educate ourselves, and then making sure that we are part of the community as a partner with others. So I call to action for St. Peter. Welcome you to our HIV advocacy and ministry.
Can I say one more thing? So one of the reasons why I agreed to come here is from that little lady in the back, Cindy Sterling. And I have to tell y'all, when I decided to go public with my HIV status, Cindy, Lois, her wife, and I, and other women, we decided to demonstrate by our actions the ability to overcome challenges in our life, and we all traveled to Africa and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro together.
Wow.
And that's how I met Cindy. And it was the first time when we were preparing that I said out loud to a news camera I was living with HIV. And these women, Cindy included, supported me through all that, and we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro together. And what I discovered then, I came back free because I would never live in silence again, or be invisible, was what I felt. And I have to say, just thank you to Cindy, because always when we were training together and when we went, she just always shined. But since we've come back, we are connected. From 2011, 2012 did we go? But when I saw her name and you all said that, they helped me. I went to Africa as an openly positive woman for the first time, and when I came back, I have not lived in shame a day since. And so Cindy, I just thank you. And a woman, Becky Pope, who was dealing with ovarian cancer for the second or third time, I'm forgetting, she had it. She's the one who wanted to do it, bald-headed, chemo treatments. And Mount Kilimanjaro, which is 19,400 and something feet, was our physical manifestation of overcoming those challenges in our life. And it was a demonstration for everyone that we can overcome whatever is in front of us. And Cindy, we were together, and they showed me I could. And I just really want to thank you for that, Cindy, of being there, because it was so, I felt like I was butt naked in a car that someone was driving when you go public. But these women, we trained together and we traveled together, and I have not been the same since we came back. So thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, thank you. You all are dismissed, and I'll turn it back over to Pastor Leslie.
Hi, SBU family. Thank you so much for listening to St. Peter United's Sermon Podcast. We pray you were touched or moved by this sermon. To support what we do, show your love and press that follow button. For more content and news, follow us on social media platforms at St. Peter United. Remember, click, like, subscribe, and follow. See you next time.